My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. while I was finishing up the brake job on Mrs. Henderson's Honda. The notification made my stomach drop before I even read it. Wedding guest list, final update from Ann's wedding planning app. I wiped my greasy hands on my coveralls and opened the link. Everything looked normal until I scrolled to the top of the page. Under bride, it read, Anne Marie Carter. Under groom, it said, undecided, undecided. My phone exploded. Text after text flooded in from friends, family, even my mother. Mike, what the hell is this? Rich, is this some kind of joke? Mom, OMG, dying laughing. Anne's bridesmaid Jessica. I called Anne immediately. She picked up on the fourth ring, giggling in the background. Hey, babe. Working late again? Anne, what's with the guest list? Groom undecided? Oh, that. It's just a little joke. Trevor suggested it for the engagement party invitations. You know, for branding purposes. His last name carries more weight in social circles. Trevor, her ex-boyfriend from college. The trust fund baby who'd been circling our relationship like a vulture since we announced our engagement. Branding? This is our wedding, not a marketing campaign. Don't be so sensitive, Mike. It's just until we figure out the name situation. Trevor thinks hyphenated names look more sophisticated. Trevor thinks? Since when does Trevor get a vote in our wedding? He's helping with the venue connections. His family knows everyone. Just trust me on this. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, oil-stained and cracked from years of shop work. Around me, the garage felt smaller than usual, the fluorescent lights buzzing like angry wasps. I'd built this business from nothing, worked 16-hour days to afford Anne's ring, and now I was undecided on my own wedding invitation. My phone buzzed again, an Instagram DM from an account I didn't recognize. Thought you should see this. The attached video showed Ann and Trevor outside his downtown condo at 2 a.m. last Tuesday. The same Tuesday, she'd told me she was working late on the Morrison wedding. They weren't just talking. I watched Trevor's hands slide around her waist, watched her lean into him, watched them disappear into his building together. The wrench in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. You look like hell, Rich said, sliding into the booth across from me at Murphy's Diner. It was 6 a.m., and I'd been awake all night. Anne's cheating on me. Rich nearly choked on his coffee. What? Are you sure? I showed him the video. His face went from skeptical to furious in about 10 seconds. That backstabbing witch, and with that pompous-ass Trevor? Mike, I'm sorry. I need to know how deep this goes. What do you mean? I need to know if she's planning to leave me at the altar or just string me along until something better comes up. Rich leaned back, studying my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Anne left her iPad at my place yesterday. Password's her dog's name. That's probably illegal. So is adultery in some states. An hour later, we were in my living room with Anne's iPad open between us. Her messages painted a picture that made my stomach turn. Group chat with her bridesmaids. Can't wait to see Mike's face when I walk down the aisle as Mrs. Trevor Ann Carter Blackwood. Are you really going through with the wedding? Just until Trevor's divorce is finalized. Then we'll have a proper ceremony at the country club. Poor Mike. He has no idea. He's sweet, but let's be honest, he fixes cars. Trevor owns 3 companies. There were dozens of messages between Ann and Trevor, plans to meet, complaints about my blue-collar lifestyle, jokes about my hands always being dirty. The worst part? They'd been planning this for months. The wedding was just a placeholder, a way to keep me busy while Trevor sorted out his messy divorce. I'm going to kill them both, I muttered. No, you're not, Rich said firmly, but we are going to make them pay. I looked at him. We? Mike, you're my best friend. Nobody humiliates you without going through me first. That afternoon, I drove to Ann's event planning office. The building was all glass and chrome, the kind of place where people wore suits that cost more than my monthly rent. Ann was in the conference room with 3 clients gesturing dramatically at fabric samples. She looked up when I walked in, her face flashing with annoyance. "Mike? What are you doing here? We need to talk. I'm with clients. Now." The clients exchanged glances. Ann forced a smile. "Excuse me for just a moment." She followed me into the hallway, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor. "What is wrong with you? You can't just barge into my workplace." "Cut the act, Ann. I know about Trevor." Her face went pale, then flushed red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Tuesday night, his condo. Should I keep going?" For a second, she looked genuinely scared. Then her expression hardened. "You're being paranoid and controlling. This is exactly why Trevor thinks we're wrong for each other." "Trevor thinks?" There it is again. "He's been a good friend to both of us. Friends don't sleep with their friends' fiancés. You're delusional, and you're embarrassing yourself." She turned to go back to her meeting. I grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to stop her. "Don't walk away from me. Let go of me right now or I'm calling security." I released her arm. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." "And Mike, don't come to my office again." I walked outside, my hands shaking with anger. Trevor's Tesla was parked in the visitor spot, pristine and gleaming under the afternoon sun. I opened the quart of motor oil I kept in my truck for emergencies. The black liquid splashed across the Tesla's white paint like blood on snow. I took a selfie with the car and texted it to Trevor. Compliments of the undecided groom. His response came immediately. "You're going to pay for this." I texted back, "Looking forward to it." By Thursday morning, I was internet famous for all the wrong reasons. Someone had screenshotted Ann's group chat messages and posted them on the town's gossip Instagram account. The post had over 500 comments and was being shared everywhere. "Groom-zoned by his own fiancée. This is why you don't date out of your league." "Team Mike! She's trash. Trevor's a homewrecker." My phone rang constantly. Reporters from local news stations wanted interviews. Old high school friends were reaching out with support or morbid curiosity. The worst part was losing friends who chose sides. Ann had convinced half our social circle that I was unstable, that I'd vandalized Trevor's car in a jealous rage. "Mike's always been possessive," she told anyone who'd listen. "I'm honestly scared of what he might do." By Friday, 3 couples had uninvited me from their upcoming parties. My own groomsmen were wavering. "Maybe you should just let this go," my friend Danny said when I ran into him at the hardware store. "Move on with your life." "She humiliated me publicly, Danny. She's planning to leave me at the altar." "But fighting back just makes you look crazy. Take the high road." "Easy for you to say. Your fiancé isn't calling you undecided on wedding invitations." Danny looked uncomfortable. "Ann says you've been stalking her, following her around town." "Ann says a lot of things. Most of them are lies." "I don't know what to believe anymore, Mike." That's when I realized I was losing more than just Ann. I was losing my entire social network, my reputation, everything I'd built in this town. That night at Murphy's bar, I was drinking alone when Trevor walked in with 2 of his college buddies. They were loud, obnoxious, clearly celebrating something. "There he is," Trevor announced, pointing at me. "The undecided groom." His friends laughed. A few other patrons looked over with interest. Trevor swaggered over to my table. "How's the car repair business, Mike?" "Still getting your hands dirty?" "How's the home wrecking business, Trevor? Still stealing other men's women?" "Stealing?" "Ann came to me, buddy. Said she needed a real man." I stood up slowly. The bar had gone quiet. "Say that again." "Which part? The part where she begged me to take her back? Or the part where she said you were the worst mistake of her life?" I threw my beer in his face. Trevor lunged at me, and we went down hard, knocking over chairs and crashing into the next table. He was bigger than me, but I'd been working with my hands my whole life. I was stronger. We rolled around on the sticky floor, throwing wild punches, until Murphy and two regulars pulled us apart. "Both of you out!" Murphy shouted. "And don't come back." Trevor's nose was bleeding. His expensive shirt was torn and stained with beer and floor grime. "This isn't over," he snarled, wiping blood from his face. "No," I agreed. "It's not." The fight was on someone's phone within minutes. By morning, the video had thousands of views with the caption, "Undecided groom loses it at local bar." I was becoming the town's entertainment, and I was tired of being the joke. It was time to fight back. Rich and I spent Saturday planning what we called Operation Wedding Wrecker. "We need to be smart about this," Rich said, spreading papers across my kitchen table. "No more public fights. No more property damage. We hit them where it really hurts. Their reputations." Exactly. Ann's built her whole business on being the perfect event planner. Trevor's built his on being the sophisticated socialite. Let's see how they handle some chaos. Phase 1 was simple. Ann's biggest client was the Morrison family's golden anniversary party next weekend. I happened to know the Morrisons were old-fashioned people who valued loyalty and traditional marriage. I created a fake email account and sent Mrs. Morrison the screenshots of Ann's group chat, along with a note, "Thought you should know what your wedding planner really thinks about marriage vows." Mrs. Morrison fired Ann by Monday morning. Phase 2 was more elaborate. Trevor belonged to an exclusive country club where image was everything. I created a fake social media profile and posted the bar fight video in their members-only Facebook group with the caption, "Is this the kind of behavior we want from our membership?" The club's board called an emergency meeting. Phase 3 was my masterpiece. I hacked into the wedding website Ann had created for us and made some creative edits. Under our love story, I replaced Ann's romantic fairy tale with the real story, complete with screenshots of her messages about leaving me for Trevor. Under wedding party, I changed the bridesmaids' descriptions to include their most embarrassing quotes from the group chat. Under registry, I added items like moral compass for the bride and backbone for the groom. The site got over 1,000 views before Ann figured out how to take it down, but the real damage was already done. Screenshots were everywhere. Local news picked up the story. Ann's remaining clients started canceling. Wednesday morning, I was at the shop when Ann's best friend Jenna showed up. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled. "Mike, we need to talk. If Ann wants to talk, she can come herself. Ann doesn't know I'm here. And after what I'm about to tell you, she's going to hate me forever." I set down my wrench. "I'm listening." The whole thing was my idea. What whole thing? The undecided groom humiliation, getting Ann back together with Trevor, all of it. I stared at her. Why? Because I've been in love with Trevor since college. Ann stole him from me senior year, and I've been waiting 8 years to get him back. So you destroyed her engagement to me? I thought if I could get them together, he'd realize Ann was just a rebound, that he'd come back to me. And instead he's planning to marry her as soon as his divorce is final. And Ann thinks it was all his idea. Jenna started crying. I ruined everything. Your life, Ann's business, my friendship with her. And for what? Trevor still doesn't even see me. I felt a strange mix of anger and pity. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I want to help you get revenge on both of them. What did you have in mind? She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been hope. The wedding is still happening. This Saturday at the Riverside Inn. Ann's desperate to salvage her reputation, and Trevor thinks a big public wedding will fix his image problems. And I still have access to all the vendor accounts, all the planning systems, everything. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Tell me more. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for what I had planned. The Riverside Inn was decorated exactly as Anne had dreamed, white roses everywhere, silk draping, a string quartet playing classical music. About 200 guests milled around the gardens, most of them Trevor's family and business associates. I watched from across the street as Anne arrived in her white Bentley rental. She looked beautiful in her designer gown, but I could see the stress in her face even from a distance. Trevor was already inside, probably glad-handing the guests and pretending everything was normal. Jenna had done her work perfectly. The wedding programs contained some creative additions, including excerpts from Anne's group chat messages printed in elegant script under words of love. The centerpieces had been switched from white roses to yellow ones, the traditional flower of infidelity. But the real surprise was waiting inside. I put on my best suit, the one I'd bought for our engagement photos, and walked through the front door like I belonged there. The ceremony was about to start. Guests were taking their seats in the main ballroom, which had been transformed into a chapel with an altar at the far end. I found a seat in the back and waited. Anne walked down the aisle to Pachelbel's cannon, her face glowing with what looked like genuine happiness. Maybe she'd convinced herself this was all legitimate. Maybe she'd forgotten about the lies and betrayal that brought her here. Trevor stood at the altar in his $1,000 tuxedo, smiling like he'd won the lottery. The minister began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Anne Marie Carter and Trevor James Blackwood." I let him get through the opening remarks, the readings, even the exchange of rings. I wanted everyone to be fully invested before I made my move. "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." I stood up. "I do." 200 heads turned to look at me. Anne went white. Trevor's face turned purple with rage. "Sir, this is a private ceremony," the minister said nervously. "Actually, it's not," I replied, walking slowly down the aisle. "This is a public fraud, and everyone here deserves to know what they're witnessing." "Mike, don't do this," Anne whispered. "Do what? Tell the truth?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have some documents you might find interesting. Text messages between the bride and groom, planning this wedding while she was engaged to me. Financial records showing Trevor paid for Anne's dress, the venue, everything, while she was still wearing my ring." Security guards started moving toward me, but I kept talking. "Did you know the bride called this wedding a placeholder ceremony? Did you know she planned to divorce the groom as soon as his current divorce was finalized?" "That's enough!" Trevor shouted. "Get him out of here!" "Or how about this?" I continued, pulling out my phone. A recording of the bride admitting she was only marrying me for financial stability while she waited for Trevor to become available. I hit play. Anne's voice filled the ballroom through the sound system Jenna had helped me connect to. "Mike's sweet, but he's not marriage material. Trevor has real money, real connections. I just need to keep Mike happy until Trevor's divorce is final." The room erupted. Guests were shouting. Anne was crying. Trevor was screaming at security to remove me, but I wasn't done. "The best part," I announced over the chaos, "is that none of this was even Trevor's idea. It was all planned by Anne's maid of honor, Jenna, who's been in love with Trevor for 8 years. Every eye in the room turned to Jenna, who was standing frozen at the altar in her yellow bridesmaid dress. Jenna orchestrated this entire thing to break up Trevor and Anne, thinking he'd come back to her. Instead, she just destroyed everyone. Trevor spun around to stare at Jenna. What is he talking about? Jenna's face crumpled. Trevor, I can explain. You did this? You ruined my life for some pathetic schoolgirl crush? The security guards finally reached me, but the damage was done. Guests were fleeing toward the exits. Anne was sobbing in her ruined dress. Trevor was screaming at Jenna, who was backing away from him in terror. And then the fire alarm went off. Jenna had promised me one final surprise, and she'd delivered. The sprinkler system activated, drenching everyone in the ballroom. The wedding cake collapsed, flowers wilted, makeup ran in black streams down faces. In the chaos of 200 people trying to escape a flooding ballroom, I walked calmly to the altar where Anne stood dripping and destroyed. "Groom undecided," I said quietly, so only she could hear. "Decision made." I turned and walked out through the emergency exit, leaving behind the wreckage of Anne's perfect wedding and Trevor's reputation. Behind me, I could hear Anne screaming my name, but I didn't look back. Outside in the parking lot, Rich was waiting by his truck with 2 beers and a huge grin. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than expected." I took the beer and climbed into the passenger seat. As we drove away, I could see fire trucks arriving at the inn, their red lights flashing against the gray sky. My phone buzzed with notifications, friend requests, interview requests, messages of support from people who'd seen the videos that were already spreading online. But for the first time in months, I didn't check them. I was done being the entertainment. I was done being undecided. I was free, 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 free.